Discover 3+ hours of spine-chilling night shift horror stories. Cursed encounters in the rain. The wind howled like a banshee as Sarah sat alone in the dimly lit dispatch center. Rain hammered against the windows, each drop a whispered ghost. She could almost feel the chill in the air, cold and heavy, pressing down on her like the weight of her solitude. The radio hissed static crackling, a reminder of the dark night outside. Her daughter, Lily, was tucked away in bed, innocent and safe, while Sarah carried the haunting burden of the unnerving stillness. Then the phone rang. It was sudden, piercing. "Help! Something's chasing me." The panicked voice belonged to a man who sounded like he was running for his life. Sarah's heart raced. She feigned calm, brushing it off as a common drunken call. Yet, as she glanced out the rain-soaked window, a flash of lightning illuminated the street, empty, desolate, sinister. The man continued, "I can see it, it's right behind me." Each word hit her like a punch to the gut, and dread crawled up her spine. But before she could respond, another call came in. This one was different. The voice was shaky, choking on fear, and all too familiar. "Sarah, I know where you live. I see your little girl plays at the park on Saturdays. Your door, it's always ajar." A cold sweat broke across her brow. How could he know? No, this must be a prank, yet desperation laced his words, creating a chilling knot in her stomach. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. Every creak of the floorboards seemed magnified, echoing like a death knell. Shadows outside twisted and danced as the storm raged. She could almost hear whispers threading through the roaring wind. Her pulse quickened. No longer merely a mother and dispatcher, she was now a woman gripped by fear, struggling to hold on to the reality she thought she knew. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the dispatcher's chair scraped against the floor, Sarah stood with trembling hands. She needed to protect Lily. Every horrible thought skidded around her mind. The fleeting glimpses of shadows, the growing whispers, they burned into her psyche. She peered into the hallway, where the door to her daughter's room stood ajar, just like her terrible habit of leaving it that way. A flicker of panic gripped her. Steeling herself, she flung open the door and stepped into the torrential downpour. Rain poured down her face like icy fingers. Visibility faded, and the night stretched before her, a haunted canvas. As she reached the edge of her property, she suddenly felt a presence. It was there, lurking just outside the beam of her porch light. And then she saw it. A shadow, familiar yet twisted, moved just beyond the trees. Her neighbor, the one with the friendly smile. But now that grin felt predatory. As he stepped closer, the air thickened with unspoken menace. Each raindrop felt like a countdown. Would she escape this nightmare? Her thoughts raced faster than her feet, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The shadows morphed into shapes, and Sarah's breath hitched in her throat. The neighbor's face, once benign, now twisted into something grotesque. Panic surged through her, hot and overwhelming. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe, only run. Turning on her heel, she stumbled back toward the house, her heart pounding like a war drum. Each footfall splashed through puddles, as cold water soaked her shoes. A furious clap of thunder rattled the air, and she dared to glance back. The neighbor stood still, watching her, his grin unmoving as if carved from stone. She burst through the front door, slamming it shut behind her. The heavy silence enveloped her like a shroud, pressing down. "Lily," she shouted, voice raw, panic spilling over. How could she have left her daughter alone? The house felt larger in that moment, every creak echoing like a warning. Each shadow loomed, seeming to reach for her. She could almost feel unseen eyes boring into her from the corners. Taking a deep breath, she glanced down the hallway. The door to Lily's room was closed. She tiptoed toward it, ears straining for any sound. The faintest breath of a breeze met her, as if something lurked just beyond the other side. She reached for the knob, and as she did, the lights flickered, plunging the hallway into darkness before snapping back to life. "Mom?" came Lily's small, frightened voice. Sarah's heart twisted. "I'm right here, baby," she called back, forcing calm into her tone. The world felt perilous, yet here was her anchor, her reason to fight through the terror wrapping around her. "Can you come in?" With a knee-jerk reaction, she flung the door open. Lily sat up in bed, eyes wide and glassy. The night light cast a soft glow, illuminating her tangled hair. But it was the image behind her that sent ice through Sarah's veins. A shadow monopolized the corner, dark and pulsating, as if alive. It seemed to writhe, reaching out to her little girl. "Lily, get away." In an instant, time stretched. Sarah lunged forward, but the shadow's tendrils lashed out, pinning her feet to the floor. It whispered sweetly, laced with malice, a sound that burrowed into her ears. "She now know." The scream erupted from Sarah's throat, fruitless in the face of suffocating darkness. She fought against the invisible grasp, heart racing, mind screaming for escape. Lily stared at her mother, confusion tangled with fear, but that was not her only witness. Out of the dark corner stepped her neighbor, impossibly closer, uninvited. "You shouldn't have sent away the messenger," he smirked, his once familiar face now an abomination. "You've made it too easy." Time crumbled around her, reality warped, and Sarah realized she had to act. The weight on her legs threatened to crush her, but instinct clawed, urging her to save her daughter. "Lily, hold on," Sarah howled, tearing the shadow's grip with sheer will. As she broke free, she lunged toward her daughter, wrapping her arms around her. They tumbled off the bed as a violent gust of wind crashed through the open window, sending papers spiraling. With a surge of strength, Sarah pulled Lily close, arms shielding their backs as the shadow howled, pulling away. But the neighbor remained, his smile now twisted into a sinister grimace, eyes glinting with malice. "Your mother can't protect you forever," he knowingly taunted, every word dripping with unholy glee. As they scrambled back, the weight of the storm raged outside, mingling with the chaos inside. Sarah clasped Lily tighter, adrenaline surging through her veins. They were trapped, cornered by an unimaginable horror. Would they survive the night? The storm rattled the windows, an ominous reminder of the rapidly unfurling nightmare. A sudden sound, a crash from the kitchen, yanked her attention away, piercing through the swirling fear. The very last thought echoed in her mind. What else was out there waiting for them? And worse yet, how much did her neighbor know? Driven by terror, Sarah took a deep breath, ready to face what lay ahead. She had to know. She had to protect her little girl, no matter what it took. With every thunderous blow of lightning, Sarah's heart raced. She felt the chill of impending doom wrapped tighter around them, each storm gust echoing the growing dread within the house. "Stay close," she whispered fiercely to Lily, her voice breaking as she pulled her daughter to her side. The air was thick, heavy with the promise of evil weaving through the halls. They inched toward the kitchen, where the crash had come from, forbidding shadows creeping along the walls. "Do you think it's the man?" Lily asked, her little voice trembling as she clutched at her mother's leg. "I don't know, but we have to be brave, okay?" Sarah's mind raced, but courage was hard to muster. The image of the neighbor's twisted face loomed behind her eyelids, taunting her even now. So many questions thrummed in Sarah's head. What had he done? What power did that grotesque shadow hold? She had no answers, only the reflex to protect Lily. They tiptoed into the kitchen, heartbeats thumping like war drums. The room was a wreck. Chairs were overturned, the table littered with broken glasses, and the light above flickered erratically, casting jagged shapes across the floor. But what rooted her feet was something far worse, a reflection in the shattered glass. It wasn't just the shattered pieces showing her fear-ridden face. One corner of the room glimmered, revealing not just darkness but eyes, many eyes watching, waiting. "Mommy!" Lily gasped, pointing toward a shadow that seemed to slither in the corner, separating itself from the wall. "Get behind me," Sarah barked, spinning around to shield her daughter. The shadow quivered, transforming into the figure of her neighbor. He stepped forward, the remnants of his predatory grin still plastered across his contorted face. "Did you really think you could escape?" His voice dropped to a low, rumbling growl. "You were chosen to serve. And your little one, she has much to offer. Go away." Sarah screamed, her voice hoarse but firm. The shadows crept closer, wrapping around her legs like snakes, fueling her panic. "You stay away from my daughter." The oppressive weight of the shadow shifted suddenly, lunging toward Lily. Sarah's arm shot out instinctively. "Lily, run." Just as the tendril closed around her daughter's ankle, the kitchen light blinked out completely, drowning them in blackness. A shrill scream tore from Sarah's throat as she unflinchingly pushed forward, feeling for Lily in the darkness. "Mom! Help!" came Lily's terrified cry, lost in the cacophony of thunder. "Hold on. I'm coming," Sarah shouted, voice cracking under pressure. The shadows swirled around her, but she felt something else gingerly touch her skin, a breeze. She couldn't question the source of it, but it stirred something deep inside the will to fight. She grasped at the invisible barrier, forcing herself to the ground, groping for an anchor, for her child. The world around her faded, replaced by a feeling of despair draping over her like a velvet curtain. Then she felt it, a small hand slipping from her grasp. "No!" she screamed, lunging forward, her free hand clawing through the void. Panic coursed through her blood. How could she let this happen? Fighting against the tendrils of the dark, she threw herself into the void, desperate and determined. With a shove, she broke through the darkness just as the lights flickered back on. Time hung suspended. She landed hard against the kitchen floor, gasping. And then she saw her Lily was still there. But she wasn't alone. Behind her, the neighbor stood, watching as a smile slowly spread, eyes glimmering with that same malevolent light. "You're too late, Sarah," he hissed. "The pact is sealed." "Oh God, what have you done?" Suddenly the shadows that had grasped her began to swirl, forming an ominous shape that shot toward Lily. Sarah surged forward, but would it be enough? She had to stop him. The cycle had to end now, or they would both pay the price. In that split second, something shifted in Sarah's mind. She wasn't going to let fear dictate her anymore. They wouldn't be sacrificed. "Stay away from her," she shrieked, determination hardening her resolve. But as she braced for confrontation, a chilling realization crept in. What if the true horror wasn't just the darkness closing in, but the truth she unwittingly stumbled into? The last glimmer of hope waned as shadows surged forward, while Sarah prepared for a battle beyond her comprehension. As she squared her shoulders, a new question rippled through the air, heavy with fear. Could she truly defy what was meant to be, or were they already trapped in the web of a sinister fate? The world around Sarah tilted. Shadows lunged, flickering like hungry beasts, eager to devour the light. "Lily!" Sarah screamed, her voice ripping through the thick air. Each second felt like an eternity as she reached for her daughter, every heartbeat a desperate drumbeat of panic. As she charged forward, shadows coiling at her feet like serpents, Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline. She could save Lily. She had to save her. "Leave her alone," Sarah shouted, gritting her teeth, locking eyes with the twisted figure of her neighbor. The grin on his face widened, revealing rows of jagged teeth like a predator ready to pounce. "You're so brave, aren't you?" he chuckled, the sound resonating through the dim kitchen. "But bravery won't protect you from destiny. She's part of something much bigger." The shadows around him danced dangerously, expanding and contracting, pulsing with a life of their own. Sarah could hear Lily's whimpers behind her, the sound of pure, unfiltered fear. "No, you won't take her." The words ignited a flame within Sarah, morphing her fear into fierce resolve. She lunged again, intentions set to tear through the otherworldly barrier closing in around her daughter. But then came an unexpected sound, a whisper, hushed and sinister, echoing in her mind like 1,000 voices overlapping. She will belong to us, she must belong, get out. Get out of my head, Sarah cried, stumbling, grasping her temples as the shadows swirled tighter. The voices clawed at her sanity, relentless, spinning tales of darkness and despair. It felt suffocating, as if fingers were gripping her throat, choking her thoughts into submission. Mommy! Lily's plea pierced through the din. Help me. The sound cut through the haze, swamping Sarah's mind. For a moment, clarity surged, and she pushed back against the whispers. No, I refuse to let you take her. In a moment of wild defiance, Sarah gripped the edge of the kitchen counter, her knuckles white, allowing the anchor to ground her. She summoned every ounce of strength, breath heaving as a strange, flickering warmth blossomed deep in her chest. Your darkness means nothing, she roared, her voice trembling but fierce. We are not yours to have. A shockwave rippled through the room. The shadows hesitated, recoiling for a brief moment, as if her words held a power they hadn't expected. The neighbor flinched, surprise lighting his grotesque features. Foolishness, he snarled, wind whipping around him. Sarah seized the opportunity. She sprinted towards Lily, whose small form stood trapped and shivering. Time blurred, and as Sarah neared, she could see the tendrils of shadow tightening around her daughter's legs like unyielding chains. Hold on, sweetie. I'm almost there, Sarah cried, wind roaring in her ears. Just as she reached Lily, a powerful force pulled at her back. Cold fingers wrapped around her waist, dragging her away from her daughter. The neighbor's laughter echoed deep and malevolent, filling the kitchen like poison. You're mine, Sarah. Forever. The pact binds you. No, Sarah shouted, feeling the pull intensify, her heart racing. She could sense Lily's fear. It ignited a firestorm of anger within her. We are not bound. We choose to break free. And in that moment of desperation, Sarah cast her hand out, fingers curling into fists, channeling every ounce of love and defiance for Lily. Time seemed to stretch infinitely as light erupted, forcing shadows to shriek and retreat, tumbling backwards like a wave breaking against unyielding rocks. But just before the light engulfed them, Sarah caught a glimpse of something sinister in the neighbor's eyes, a flash of intense fury mixed with a promise of revenge. In the next breath, silence fell as if the storm outside held its breath. Sarah turned to Lily, heart pounding. Are you okay? I think so. What was that? Lily stuttered, her small voice trembling. But before Sarah could answer, the kitchen door creaked loudly, swinging open with a heavy, ominous groan. A soft breeze swept in, carrying the faintest echo of laughter, tainted with malice. And then Sarah felt it, a chill creeping down her spine, the shadows slowly gathering again. Not yet, a whisper slithered through the air. You have merely delayed. The inevitable fear coursed through Sarah as she realized the storm wasn't over. Lily, we need to go, she urged, pulling her daughter close, a sense of urgency surging through her. What twisted force awaited them outside? What awaited them in the merciless night? With her heart pounding in her chest, Sarah steeled herself for whatever horrors lay beyond, and as they stepped through the door, the world plunged into a silence so profound, it felt like a trap waiting to be sprung. The night swallowed them, darkness congealing around Sarah and Lily like thick fog, its embrace suffocating. The air felt electric, charged with an unseen malice. Sarah's breath quickened as the door creaked shut behind them, sealing off the safety of the kitchen and leaving only the ominous night. Mommy, what if he comes after us? Lily's voice trembled, strands of fear weaving through her words. I won't let him, Sarah whispered fiercely, though doubt prickled at her resolve. She could almost sense the shadows slithering behind them, waiting, watching. They moved cautiously across the backyard, every rustle of leaves sounding like the crackling laughter of spirits mocking them. A solitary street lamp cast an eerie glow, illuminating the path ahead, but creating deep pools of shadow just beyond its reach. Stay close to me, Sarah urged, her heart pounding like a war drum. Just as they reached the edge of their property, a piercing howl echoed in the distance. The sound was raw, guttural, like a wounded animal longing for its mate. Sarah froze, terror gripping her chest. What was that? Lily whispered, eyes wide, glancing at the darkened woods that bordered their yard. I don't know, Sarah stammered, her mind racing. But we have to keep moving. With every step, an unseen weight pressed down upon them, as if the very ground conspired against their escape. They turned the corner, seeking the comfort of the street, only to find it shrouded in an oppressive silence. Mommy? Lily's voice was barely above a whisper now. I don't like this. I want to go home. Sarah's stomach twisted. Home should have felt safe, but now it felt haunted. A place filled with malevolence. We can't go back yet. Just a little further. But as they reached the road, flickering lights flickered in the distance. Two figures stood by a car, shadows painted stark under the weak street lamp's glow. Sarah gulped, panic clawing at her throat. Were they friends or foes? Help, she shouted, waving her arms. But as the figures turned, Sarah's stomach dropped. The faces were featureless, shrouded in darkness, mouths twisted into grotesque, unending grins that sent chills spiraling down her spine. Mommy, what is that? Lily whimpered, clutching Sarah's hand tightly. It's okay, just don't look. But doing so felt impossible. The figures began to move towards them, gliding rather than walking, closed fists raised as if to beckon them into the shadows. Sarah pulled Lily back, every instinct screaming at her to flee. Run, she shouted, turning her back and sprinting down the street. The howl echoed again, closer this time, the sound weaving dread into the very air they breathed. They raced away from the figures, towards the thick woods that loomed like a shadowy fortress. But with each desperate step, the forest seemed to close in, branches snagging at Sarah's clothes like grasping fingers. Mommy, Lily cried, tears glistening, her little legs struggling to keep pace. Keep going. Don't stop. The words came out in gasps as Sarah fought against the fear surging in her chest. The woods enveloped them, and just as they crossed the threshold, moonlight broke through the trees, illuminating a narrow path. But the air felt heavier here, a different kind of dread creeping into her bones. What is this place? Lily asked, voice barely above a whisper. I don't know. The truth hung in the air, heavier than night. And just as soon as they stepped further into the woods, the whispers returned soft and sinister, dancer-like in cadence. Leave, Mommy. Sarah felt her heart drop as she turned to Lily, but instead of the full-bodied, glassy-eyed fear of moments before, her daughter seemed entranced, eyes wide and unblinking, the shadows stretching from the trees appearing to reach toward her. Lily, don't listen, Sarah shouted, lunging forward as Lily swayed slightly. But what had they awakened in the woods? And how deep did the darkness stretch within her child? The shadows around them stirred, weaving into an ominous tapestry of despair. Lily, the woods seemed to pulse, alive with a hunger that threatened to swallow them whole. And as the path ahead twisted into darkness, flanked by gnarled trees and a breeze saturated with whispers, Sarah realized dreadfully this was just the beginning. What awaited them deeper in the woods? The real horrors were just creeping into view. The forest closed in like a vice, branches clawing at Sarah's arms as she fought to reach her daughter. The whispers, sinister and slithering, coiled around them, urging them to turn back, to leave. Lily, Sarah screamed, desperate as she felt the shadows tighten around her, thick and suffocating. But Lily stood frozen, caught in some invisible web of dread. Mommy, I'm scared, she mumbled. Her small voice barely penetrated the veil of darkness, thin and brittle against the ancient pulse of the trees. Just take my hand, Sarah pleaded, extending her arm, panic surging in waves. The shadows around Lily flickered, a swirling mass, flickering in and out of existence. Something shifted in the air, a predator lurking just beyond the reach of the moonlight. Leave, the word hung heavy, echoing off the trees. It was no longer just a whisper. It was a command, and Lily seemed to hear it. She took a step forward, eyes glazed, as if sleepwalking through a dream doused in nightmare. Don't you dare. Sarah clawed forward, her instincts piercing her burgeoning fear. You come back to me. She grasped her daughter's hand, cold and unyielding. But just as she pulled Lily away, a loud crack ricocheted through the woods. A branch snapped, and from the depth of darkness, a figure emerged hulking and twisted, shrouded in shadows that dripped like ink. Its face warped, features flickering like a candlelight held too close, never fully there, always shifting. Leave. It rasped again, the sound suffocating, like a fog creeping into her chest. Run, Lily, Sarah shouted, but her voice fell silent in the weight of the night. Fear ignited a primal instinct. She bolted down the path, dragging Lily behind her. Branches lashed out, roots twisted underfoot. The forest roared alive, winding like a serpent, conspiring to entangle them. Sarah's breath hitched, heart thundering, as she stumbled forward. With each frantic step, the world around them darkened further. Light flickered in and out of view, as if mocking their desperation. The whispers swelled into a cacophony, pleading and threatening all at once. As visions of their home, the warmth of the kitchen, the laughter, dissolving into the shadows behind them. Dread welled up. Sarah's tears burned her eyes. They could not let the night win. Lily, stay with me, she cried, but Lily was slipping away. Her tiny grip began to loosen, fingers sliding. Mommy! Her voice broke through the chaos, full of confusion and fear, just before the night swallowed it into silence. In that moment, Sarah felt the ground beneath her shift spongy and alive, as if it desired to devour her whole. Desperation clawed at her throat. She tightened her grip around Lily's small hand, pulling her close. They were an island in a sea of darkness, but the figure lingered just out of sight, lurking, relentless. Leave it, rasped, veiled in malice, the very essence of despair creeping into Sarah's core. I want tea, she roared, defiance propelling her into a sprint, desperate to escape the suffocating grip of the night. But every twist of the path betrayed them. Each turn led them deeper, deeper into the heart of darkness. Suddenly, a blinding light erupted, a beacon breaking through the trees, casting shallow shadows as it flickered freakishly. Sarah squinted, heart leaping with both hope and fear. What was there? Could there be salvation in the heart of the woods? Or was it a trap, a cruel illusion designed to lure them further into the jaws of terror? Before she could decide, a scream reverberated through the night. And it was not just any scream, it was Lily's. Lily! Sarah's scream surged, but the darkness swallowed it whole. Fear ignited a wild sprint towards the light, towards the echoing cry, praying it wasn't too late. As the darkness stretched out behind her, an agonizing question loomed: what price would they pay to escape? The light flickered like a dying star, blinding and disorienting. Sarah pushed herself forward, every heartbeat pounding loud in her ears, drowning out the screams that echoed through the forest. Lily! She cried again, desperation clawing up her throat. As she darted toward the glow, the shadows shrank back, retreating for just a moment, as if afraid of the light. But fear lingered in the corners. The whispers shifted, angry now, screaming for her to stop, to turn around. Each step felt like crossing a threshold deeper into a realm she didn't understand. Mommy! Lily's voice, weakened and trembling, tugged at her with ferocity. They had to be close. Reality felt thin, stretching between her and the figure she could feel lurking behind her, waiting to close in when she faltered. Then Sarah saw it. A clearing lay just ahead, trees receded, revealing an old, rusted lamp post flickering under a sickly yellow light. Below it, the ground looked different, blacker, as though it had been stained from years of neglect and gloom. Lily! She pleaded, each syllable trembling. But instead of a response, an ominous laughter erupted from the shadows, mocking her pain. Sarah's heart sank as she stepped closer to the light, wondering if it was an escape or a trap. The ground shifted beneath her feet, soft and sponge-like, moist with decay. She hesitated, sensing a conflict deep within that something was off about this place. But then, in her mind, the image of Lily's frightened face sparked her resolve. With a surge of defiance, She plunged forward, into the radius of the flickering light. Just as she reached the base of the lamp post, a thick fog began to swirl around her legs, cool and clammy. It curled up her body, caressing her skin like fingers, squeezing the air from her lungs. "No," she gasped, fighting it, and a primal instinct screamed for her to turn back. Suddenly, she spotted Lily's small frame just past the light, standing motionless, staring into the forest where the shadows thrashed angrily. "Lily!" Sarah reached out, but something held her back, wrapping around her waist like a vice, pulling her towards the darkness. "Leave." The whispers rose, a furious swell as the shadows swirled, solidifying into shapes that writhed and coiled, hungry shadows that danced just beyond the flickering glow of the lamp. "Mommy!" Lily's tear-streaked face was a beacon, her eyes wide with terror, and for a fleeting moment, Sarah saw hope reflected there. Tore at Sarah's heart. She had to reach her no matter the cost. With all her strength, she ripped away from the cold embrace of the fog and surged toward her daughter. "Hold on to me, Lily. I'm coming." Her voice shattered the silence, but it felt like a last, desperate cry on the wind. But as Sarah took her first step, the lamp flickered violently, plunging them into darkness for a split second, illuminating shadows that stretched and twisted. In that moment, everything shifted. A howl filled the air, raw and feral, ripping through the night like a jagged knife. The ground quaked beneath them, and the figures of darkness surged from the depths, lunging for Sarah, clawing at her, tearing at her flesh and spirit. Panic tore through her. With one last effort, she dove toward Lily, but the shadows closed in, swirling around the girl, engulfing her in a suffocating embrace. Sarah felt the warmth of her daughter slip away, and terror wrenched her stomach. "Lily!" And then the world tilted. The lamp flickered back into life, but Sarah was alone in the clearing, the darkness receding, leaving only silence in its wake. "No, no!" she shouted, stricken with horror. Where was Lily? With frantic breaths, she spun in place, but the trees loomed, tall and indifferent. The shadows kept the secrets of the forest close, enveloping any hint of her daughter. The figure was behind her. She could sense it, lingering just within reach, hungry and waiting. As it rasped out, "Leave," Sarah realized the pulse of her own heart echoed in those words. But an intrepid spark flared within her. She wouldn't surrender. If she was to escape, she needed to confront this nightmare. And as she faced the void, a chilling thought whispered through her mind. What if the shadows already knew what she would do next? What if they were expecting her? As the laughter rose again, Sarah took a trembling breath, steeling herself. She would not cower. She would fight. And somehow, against all odds, she would find Lily again. But as the moon dimmed, a sense of dread flooded her stomach. Could she truly fight against something that seemed to own the night? She took another step away from the lamp, back toward the growing shadows, praying that whatever lurked there would reveal a thread of hope. And as she did, the darkness sighed, ready to swallow her whole. The air grew colder as Sarah stepped into the shadows, a choking sense of foreboding wrapping around her like a shrouded blanket. The laughter faded but left a chilling echo, the mockery lingering like a bad taste in her mouth. Mischievous whispers beckoned her, urging her deeper where the moonlight dared not reach. "Lily," she whispered, her voice trembling. The shadows shifted, almost playfully, darting between trees as though alive. Every rustle in the branches felt like a warning, every breath of wind a reminder of her vulnerability. Heart pounding, Sarah crouched low, trying to blend into the inky darkness, but her very presence felt like a target illuminated against the night sky. Suddenly, a flicker shone ahead, different from before, a new glow, weaker yet inviting. Without thinking, she moved toward it, each step echoing her desperate hope. But with every inch gained, the shadows pressed closer, their lurking forms closing in like predators circling prey. She reached the source of the light, a small, broken lantern resting on the ground, flickering erratically as if caught between life and death. It pulsed dimly, illuminating odd shapes around her, revealing twisted branches and long-forgotten trinkets of people long gone. Every item whispering stories she couldn't bear to hear. Was Lily drawn to this place? Dread pooled in her stomach as the lantern's light flickered. In the brief illumination, she saw figures' faces reflected in the shadows, eyes wide and hollow. Were they remnants of souls trapped in this forest, like echoes of a long-lost past? Sarah, a soft voice floated through the damnation, painfully familiar. Fear broke through her resolve. Mommy! It was there again, her sweet girl, but distorted a call for help that both meant everything and nothing. Where are you, Lily? She yelled, breaking free from her internal paralysis. The shadows groaned again, displeased with her disruption. What do you want from me? The ground rumbled, pulsing in response. She felt it beneath her feet, alive. A cold energy surged up, rattling her bones. Leave, the voices urged again, but now the tone shifted, almost pleading. Were they warning her? Is this your prison? She demanded, heart racing as paranoia danced through her. Why do you keep her? The echo of laughter crested, vibrant with mania. Shapes formless and cruel swirled around her, bound by an invisible thread. Tension crackled in the air as she backed away, the lantern flickering wildly, revealing inch-long fissures in the ground, dark and yawning. Sarah stumbled, nearly falling into one, the scent of rot and despair wafting up to meet her. And then, amidst the chaos, a greater noise erupted, a guttural roar, like some beast awakened from a long slumber. Instinct kicked in. She bolted toward what she thought was an escape, her breath hitching. As she ran, the shadows darted beside her, caressing her skin with icy fingers. The voices from behind gained momentum, sharp and chaotic. For a moment she stopped, a flicker of light breaking through the fog from somewhere ahead. But where was Lily? Where was the warmth of her embrace? And just like that, she saw it. A flicker of red just beyond the darkest trees. Lily's coat. Lily! Sarah screamed, her own voice breaking under the weight of desperation. Everything around her fell silent, but something ominous shifted in the air. The shadows hungered, and they weren't done with her yet. A violent gust whipped through the clearing as she dashed the last few feet. A barrier of darkness surged, blocking her path to her daughter. As the shadows hissed and roared, an inhuman figure coalesced from the gloom, its eyes smoldering with a feral glow. It grinned, a mouth too wide, too wrong. Leave. It rasped again, the words spinning into a chaotic chorus from the creatures surrounding her. Her heart quaked in her chest. This was not just a fight for her daughter. This was a dance with malevolence itself. With her back against the whims of the shadowy abyss, Sarah felt the weight of every choice pressing down on her. The thing crept closer, malicious intent drenching every breath in dread. Mommy! And the darkness stirred with hunger, as if ready to consume. In that electric moment of confrontation, Sarah made a decision. Somehow she would hold on. She would find her strength within the chaos, against the insidious forces waiting for her to unravel. But as the shadows slipped closer, she wondered, what if unraveling was the only way to fight back? Let her go, Sarah screamed, the desperation in her voice slicing through the suffocating darkness. The grin of the creature widened, revealing jagged teeth that glistened like wet stone in the dim light. It advanced, its form shifting, elongating, an unfathomable dread creeping into Sarah's mind. The air thickened with tension, almost tasting metallic as it wrapped around her, squeezing her lungs. Her thoughts raced. What if these shadows really could consume her? There was no escape from this place, but she had to fight. I will not leave without her. The creature paused, its eyes narrowing into slits that burned with an ancient hunger. This is not your fight. It breathed, the words slithering through the dark. This is hers. It gestured toward the flickering piece of red cloth caught on the twisted roots ahead. Lily, Sarah called, her voice cracking. With one swift movement, she turned to break through the barrier, but it shifted, sneering as her hands brushed against the consuming void. Every attempt to break free only pulled her deeper into despair. The shadows howled like banshees, their piercing shrieks vibrating through her bones. With every anguished wail, more apparitions emerged, faces of twisted sorrow, mouths that opened in silent screams. They circled around her, drawing close, choking her with their mournful presence. Mommy, the faint call of her daughter cut through the noise, distant yet powerful, igniting a fierce flame of hope inside Sarah's heart. She refused to let fear extinguish it. Placing her hands on the ground, she pulled herself as close to the open fissure as possible, peering into the depths of despair. "Lily, I'm coming." Tears streamed down her cheeks, mixing with the thick, shadowy air. With a swift movement, she tore at the darkness, hands clawing through the oppressive void, feeling nothing but cold air and sorrowful whispers in return. The shadows shrieked louder, their cacophony interrupting her inner resolve. "You don't belong here," they hissed, an echoing choir of foreboding. Fear racked through her, but she couldn't falter. Stealing her resolve, Sarah ripped a nearby branch from the ground, a makeshift weapon against malevolence. "Lily," she yelled again, dodging more shadows encroaching on her space. The sounds of her daughter's voice faded in and out like static on a radio, spinning her thoughts into chaos. Suddenly, she felt a tug in her heart. The lantern, glimmering behind her, began to gain strength, pushing back against the darkness. Distracted, she turned to its newly bright glow, hope igniting. "Mommy!" The voice surged forward, sharp and clear this time, resonating through the damp night. Sarah pivoted back toward the shadowy figure, determination flooding her veins. "I don't care what you want. She doesn't belong to you." The creature seemed to falter, momentarily losing its grip on her mind. But its laughter returned, low and menacing. "But this is where she truly belongs. With souls like her, lost and wandering, forever." Heart racing, Sarah surged forward, fueled by a desperate hope that clashed against the growing darkness. "No!" A cry trenching through her. She swung the branch with all her might, feeling a momentary connection with the fading light. But just as the branch made contact, shadows burst forth, consuming the blow with ease. "Your love is weak. Surrender or lose her forever," it taunted, eyes glowing like embers, flickering with amusement. Disbelief stabbed her. Was her love weak? What if it was all in vain? A sudden realization washed over her. "You're afraid," Sarah shouted, her heart synchronizing with the flickering light. "Afraid of the bond we share." The shadows wavered, and for a fleeting moment, the whispers quieted. What power did she hold? Could love really be a weapon? Stepping closer to the creature, Sarah felt the warmth of determination swell inside her. "You are nothing without fear. I will not give in." Roars of fury exploded from the shadows, shaking the ground beneath her. And then, from the depths of darkness, a new sound arose, one that made every hair on Sarah's arms stand on end. A child's laughter. Mommy, in that chilling moment of recognition, the landscape around her twisted further. Shadows shrank back, but something worse loomed ahead. What was coming next, and would she be ready to face it? The shadows trembled around Sarah as Lily's laughter rang like a bell, clear and bright against the backdrop of dread. It was a sound Sarah thought she would never hear again. Driven by an instinct sharper than fear, she turned toward the light that flickered at the edge of the darkness, heart racing. "Lily!" she screamed again, pushing through the shadowy haze that whispered threats and lies. The figure lurking just out of reach writhed, its jagged edges shifting as if impatient for her surrender. "This is where she belongs, where all lost souls end up," crooned voice leaking malice. "You cannot save her. You can only save yourself." "No." Each word burst from Sarah with the force of a storm, fury igniting her resolve. "She is not yours." With renewed determination, she charged at the darkness, wielding the remnants of her love like a blade. The bright pulse of the lantern radiated courage within her. Still, the shadows hissed, biting at her heels, reaching for her limbs. "Come, embrace the darkness," they coaxed, their tones like sweet poison, swirling around her. With a wild cry, Sarah swung the branch, connecting with the nearest shadow. For a moment, it shimmered, fading like smoke, a glimpse of what's left behind when you choose to love fiercely. "Hold on, Lily. I'm coming." And then, she saw her Lily's small form emerged from the darkness, radiant and trembling, as if caught in a web spun from fear. Shadows danced around her, clawing at the hem of her coat with insatiable hunger. "Mommy, help!" Lily's plea tore at Sarah's heart, instinct driving her forward. Each step felt like trudging through thick mud, the shadows pushing against her with a desperate ferocity. "Stay away from her." Sarah pushed through, summoning every ounce of strength. She could feel the weight of the darkness pulling at her heart, threatening to suffocate her. But love propelled her onward, a blinding light in the heart of despair. "Lily." As she closed the distance, Sarah felt the energy shift. The laughter of the child echoed louder, intertwining with whispers of the creatures surrounding her. "A pact has been forged," they wailed. "You cannot break it." "No," Sarah shouted, shaking her head fiercely, blocking out their poisonous words. "I choose my daughter. I choose love." The shadows writhed, anger coursing through the air, an eerie darkness thickening around them. But in the heart of that oppressive silence, a truth flickered like the lantern. Love was an indomitable force. She reached out, connecting with Lily's small hand amidst the grasping shadows. "I'm here, sweetie." Lily's fingers brushed against her palm, a charge radiating from their contact. The shadows shrieked, recoiling as if burned by the light of their bond. Sarah felt warmth rush through her, sparking against the despair. "We can fight together." In that moment, a fierce glow erupted from their joined hands, a barrier of light forged from their love, radiating pure energy. The shadows screamed, thrashing violently, their forms twisting and breaking against the luminescence. "A pact can only bind those who choose to be bound," Sarah declared, her voice ringing with clarity. More energy flowed, and she felt the roots of power digging deep, the earth beneath her feet pulsating with raw potential. The shadow beast faltered, its grin wavering, uncertainty flickering in its cold eyes. "This is impossible," it hissed. "Not anymore." In a surge of confidence, Sarah focused all her love, channeling it outward. The glowing light cascaded in bright waves, ripping apart the shadows with every pulse, restoring the very essence of openness and safety. "Mommy!" Lily cheered, her voice bursting with pure joy, as the tendrils of darkness peeled away, retreating into the night. Finally free, they stood together, light brightening the oppressive darkness surrounding them, revealing the true nature of the forest. Trees that had once loomed like silent giants began to shimmer with hope and light. "We did it!" Lily cried, eyes shimmering like stars, alive with wonder as the remnants of the darkness faltered back. Freedom rang around them, and Sarah felt her heart swell. But in the moment of triumph, a shadow still lingered, vanquished, but alive. The figure pulsed like a dying ember, its fangs glinting as it melded into the night. "You may have won this time, but we will return," it murmured softly before disappearing into the inky abyss. Breathing heavily, Sarah clutched Lily tight, their bodies radiating warmth, a warmth that promised protection even against the encroaching dark. "It's over," Sarah whispered. "We're safe now." The shadows began to dissolve, the oppressive weight lifting from their bones. The forest transformed, becoming tranquil and serene, filled with celestial light, as if nature itself rejoiced. "Can we go home now?" Lily asked, her innocent voice weaving through the remnants of the night. "Absolutely," Sarah replied, drawing her daughter close, heart full. They walked towards the edge of the woods, arms interlocked, stepping through the shadows that trickled away like fading mist. In the distance, home beckoned, a warm, inviting glow tethered in reality. Though fear would always linger in the back of her mind, she had taken back her power. Hand in hand, they moved towards their future, determined to hold onto the light. And as they emerged from the Shadowlands, Sarah felt her heart surge with an undeniable force, empowering their spirits. No darkness could conquer them together. They stepped into their front yard, gazing back one last time at the forest that had become their battleground, a testament to their victory. "Come, my love," Sarah whispered to Lily. "Let us find our way back to the light." The peace around them hummed sweetly. Laughter would be their shield. Love would be their fortress. And always, always, they would remember. They faced the night together, and together they triumphed. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm seriously. It makes a difference. Fill the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans know how important it is to support the channel through these actions.